Hey, everybody. How are we? Let's see. Boston gets the Titty Hair Award today. What's up, Nomad? Double D's. Trailer get taken care of. Wingspan, hope you're feeling well. Linda, Spider Dog. How's everybody today? Hey, I need to. Well, holy crap, Wingspan. I just saw that. That's a very shitty thing for people to do. I know my name gets shouted out, so it's not like people can't find me. So this may be a short one today. I am very sleepy. Uh DDoX panel had me up until the wee hours this morning. Oh, nice, Spider Dog. Michael Rakers. All right, let's get going here. I hope everybody's here feeling well besides Wingspan. I somebody doxed Wingspan, so that's pretty shitty. Okay. I, I did too. I woke up scared to death. It was 3:54 when I woke up. So sitting in my desk chair, I was I got about 5 minutes. So well, let's see how it goes and see how far we get today before I get too sleepy. My sleep schedule is going to be all jacked. Um, what is peculiar to our own age is the abandonment of the idea that history could be truthfully written. I know it is the fashion to say that most of recorded history is lies anyway. I am willing to believe that history is, for the most part, inaccurate and biased. But is peculiar to our own age is the abandonment of the idea that history could be truthfully written. In the past, did I give proper attribution to that quote? Looking back on the Spanish War, 1943. I just want to make sure I haven't read this one yet. Sorry, I don't want to make y'all seasick doing this, but I had to restart my PDF page, and I didn't save it. That's fine. Hey, Cap. Hey, Linda. Can't remember if I said hey to you or not. Let's see. In the past, people deliberately lied or they unconsciously colored what they wrote or they struggled after the truth. Well, well knowing that they must make many mistakes. But in each case, they believe that, quote, and facts existed and were more or less discoverable. And in practice, there was always a considerable body of fact, which would have been agreed to by almost everyone. If you look up the history of the last war, for instance, in Encyclopedia Britannica, you will find that a respectable amount of the material is drawn from German sources. A British and a German historian would disagree deeply on many things, even on fundamentals, but there would still be that body of, as if it were, as it were, neutral fact on which neither would seriously challenge the other. It is just common basis is this common basis of agreement with its implication that human beings are all one species of animal that totalitarianism destroys. Nazi theory indeed specifically denies that such a thing as truth exists. There is, for instance, no such thing as science. There is only German science, etc. The implied objective of this line of thought is a nightmare world in which the leader or some ruling clique controls not only the future but the past. If the leader says such and such event, it never happened, well, it never happened. If he says that 2 and 2 are 5, well, then 2 are 5. This prospect frightens me much more than bombs. And after our experiences of the last few years, this is not a frivolous statement. Yeah, but I haven't read this. But is it perhaps childish or morbid to terrify oneself with visions of a totalitarian future? Before writing off the totalitarian world as a nightmare that can't come true, just remember that in 1925, the world of today would have seemed a nightmare that couldn't come true. Against that shifting, phantasmagoric world in which black may be white tomorrow and yesterday's weather can be changed by decree, there are in reality only two safeguards. One is that however much you deny the truth goes on existing, as it were, behind your back, and you consequently can't violate it in ways that impair military efficiency. The other is that so long as some parts of the earth remain unconquered, the liberal tradition can be kept alive. Let fascism, or possibly even a combination of several fascisms, conquer the whole world, and those two conditions no longer exist. We in England underrate the danger of this kind of thing because our traditions and our past security have given us a sentimental belief that it all comes right in the end, and the thing you most fear never really happens. Nourished for hundreds of years on a literature in which right invariably triumphs in the last chapter, we believe half instinctively that evil always defeats itself in the long run. Pacifism, for instance, is founded largely on this belief. Don't resist evil and it will somehow destroy itself. But why should it? What evidence is there that it does? Kind of a chilling reminder of where we are in the world today. That um, apathy kills, right? We don't, we are not um, this monolith that we think we are. Um, hey, Wyatt, it's good to see you on your show today. Hey, Double D's. So you do you have the trailer moved, or are you still working on getting it moved? No matter how pacifist we may want to be, at very least, we still must be ready to defend ourselves. I think an unwillingness to be politically offensive, even, has led us to a place where apath- the apathetic thinking allows one side to rule. Even, I mean, look at the current Department of Justice. Everybody says it is weaponized, but against one side. But in reality, they have um, tried to stay so apolitical that the they would not pursue anything that made them look political despite best evidence. Um, it'll be interesting who the new pick will be. If you don't follow politics closely or you've been busy today, Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination or name for consideration for director of Department of Justice. So yeah. Um, so in the intelligence community, it's called analysis paralysis, right? You get into this cycle of analyzing, and worrying about making a move, and so nothing gets done. It was always a fight between. So I kind of worked in the world between analysis and operations, and so I would get frustrated because I'm chomping at the bit to get the operation going, and I would make decisions that oftentimes got me called in on the carpet. No, absolutely, double D's. Um, Obviously, in this climate of war hawkery, we don't have to be concerned with pacifism. Unfortunately, this is so. Well, I mean, like I said on your stream, Wyatt, I if DeSantis doesn't appoint Gates right back into uh, his Senate position or his House position, um, we could have Lara Trump. What's up, Freedom Fighter? Good to see you here. Yeah, we do that in our personal lives, double D's all the time, right? You worry about making a decision, doing the right thing. It, it's a tough loop to get out of. It's an anxiety thing. Um, Wingspan. Just think, Linda McMahon of WWE fame is going to be the Secretary of Education. Well, is going to be the dismantler of the education department. I mean that's there's no secret to that. Got an ambulance coming by. Hang on one second. Hexeth, Hexeth may be on his way out already though because of burn something he said, I guess, on Sean Ryan's podcast. I haven't seen it, so I just saw a headline. Um, it was something about women in combat, so I don't know. Freedom might know better than me. Wasn't she on his? Wasn't McMahon on his last cabinet for something, or was she an advisor on something? I mean, he Eric Prince's sister was in Eric Prince's sister was the over education last time. Small Business Administration. That's right, Wyatt. It well, I mean, if they're going to do recess appointments, Spider Dog, what are we going to do then? I mean, Graham's already said that that's the way they're going to go, and he should be fighting against it. Zero checks and balances, zero. And look, I hate both sides of the aisle, but I want equal I want equal protections for everybody in an election cycle, not after the election cycle's over. It I keep going back to this is this we got to be representative of everyone. Um, see, they want to allow recess appointments, but according to Lindsay, he doesn't give a damn. Exactly. But they have the votes. Right? Yes, indeed. Competency is always the goal. Experience and being a caretaker, the caretaker of the departments in which you um, are overseeing. Now, that doesn't mean continue the bloat. Absolutely trim where trim needs to be done. All right, let's see what Orwell has to say. I've been on my soapbox probably long enough. So, by making it a penal offense, oh, I'm sorry, we're not on G Boys. Making it a penal offense to listen to Allied broadcasts, the Germans have ensured that those broadcasts will be accepted as true. From Review of Voices in the Darkness, The Story of European Radio War by Tangilin Tribune, 30 April 1943. Anyone who has had to do propaganda to friendly countries must envy the European service of the BBC. They are playing on such an easy wicket. Anybody like cricket? Right, Boston. I I tend to like to watch cricket. I don't understand it, but there's just something there 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 is something fun about watching a little bit of the matches. So hearing or reading Wicked is pretty funny to me. Is that Tanguy? Oh, it may be Tanguy. People living under a foreign occupation are necessarily hungry for news. And by making it a penal offense to listen to Allied broadcasts, the Germans have ensured that those broadcasts will be accepted as true. Right? Something forbidden is something that is forbidden is something that is craved for. Right? You want to get down to the brass tacks of it. Um, just just really dig into it and um I'm, I'm trying not to say something so everybody doesn't give me a hard time. Uh uh get okay, get to the meat of the matter, right? Um but you forbid these broadcasts and then you airdrop radios and everything and you ensure that that for the most part it's taken as fact and you got to do something else to keep your populace down. Radio Free Europe, right? um Great REM song, uh Transistor Radio, what was it? Radio Song with KRS-One. getting getting to the meat of the matter. You just oh man. Double D's, I can't answer that question. Oh man. There however, the advantage of the BBC's European service ends. If heard, it will be believed, except perhaps in Germany itself. But the difficulty is to be heard at all, and still more, to know what to say. With these difficulties, Mr. Tanguy Lean's interesting book is largely concerned. First of all, there are physical and mechanical obstacles. It is never easy to pick up a foreign station unless one has a fairly good radio set, and every hostile broadcast labors under the enormous disadvantage that its time and wavelength cannot be advertised in the press. Even in England, where there is no sort of ban on listening, few people have even heard of German freedom stations such as New British and the Workers' Challenge. There is also jamming, and above all, there is the Gestapo. All over Europe, countless people have been imprisoned or sent to concentration camps, and some have been executed merely for listening to the BBC. In countries where surveillance is strict, it is only safe to listen on earphones, which may not be available. In any case, the number of workable radio sets is probably declining for want of spare parts. Trying not to go in the gutter. Appreciate it, Wyatt. I didn't read. I meant to read this. Some people are more concerned with power and entitlement than the privilege of public service. Yeah, agreed. Um, it Are there individual conspiracies within government like a deep state? I don't think. I think that's something more was more um, readily done before the rapid communications and leaks, compartmentalization, and then um, people within the silos holding on to their information. Uh, it's hard to get things going. What's up, Joey Simpson? But I mean, some people believe in the deep state. I just think, from my experience, it would be extremely hard to do because, like the Patriot Act, we just, I mean, you had a war, a some terrorist attacks going on, so we just co-signed on giving away our rights, or our elected representatives co-signed on it, and then people would be um, all too happy to say that the state needs this power to root out the evil terrorists, but in our infiltrating our country, when by the numbers, the most dangerous people in our country are our own countrymen. Let's see, Cap. Now, the titular heads of things are temporary, but entrenched bureaucracy, they control the actual power. At the higher levels, I would say so, but like we're up to 18 intelligence agencies right now in America. They they technically are all under DNI, but the the brutalness of the competition inside of them, I just don't see a concerted conspiracy there. Now, with the moneyed classes and private intelligence apparatus, think Eric Prince's intelligence operations during the first administration. Prince was advising Trump through backdoors to on intelligence matters. I think that's where largely danger lies. Appointed positions and lifetime appointment positions could be controlled by moneyed classes. I mean, it's nothing um different than the world has run as long as there's been structured government. It's all the same. It's just become larger and more. The stakes are higher, maybe. The left does the same way. That's why you get bids of news personalities saying the same things across the board. Oh yeah, I mean they get their talking points. It's it's insane. Sherry, hello. So anyway, I get conflicted about those things sometimes. Again, some things need to be uh, restarted, like everything. Um, these physical difficulties themselves lead on to the big and only partly soluble question of what is safe to say. If your probable audience have got to risk their necks to hear you at all, and have also got to listen, for instance, at midnight in some drafty barn or with the earphones under the bedclothes, is it worthwhile to attempt propaganda? Or must you assume that nothing except hard news, funny, right? Hard news, do we hear that? A lot in the last, I'd say 30 years, hard news is worth broadcasting. Or again, does it pay to do definitely inflammatory propaganda among people whom you are unable to help in a military sense? Or again, is it better from a propaganda point of view to tell the truth or to spread confusing rumors and promise everything to everybody? When it is a case of addressing the enemy and not the conquered populations, the basic question is always whether to cajole or threaten. Both the British and the German radios have hovered between the two policies. So far as truthfulness of news goes, the BBC would compare favorably with any non-neutral radio. On the other doubtful points, its policy is usually in a compromise, sometimes a compromise that makes the worst of both worlds. But there's little question that the stuff which is broadcast to Europe is on a higher intellectual level than what is broadcast to any other part of the world. Good old British snobbery. You're right about that. Being one side does it in your face, and the other side does it in the shadows. Which, to some extent, the shadows are could be scarier. The BBC now broadcasts in over 30 European languages and nearly 50 languages in all. A complex job when one remembers that, so far as Britain is concerned, the whole business of foreign radio propaganda has to be improvised since 1938. Again, the Germans. they they meet fortnightly. There it is. The meadows. Now he's gonna cry on this big pillow. Such a good movie. What is this snow you speak of, sir? We got oh man. The Rothschilds part is extremely funny now that one of our favorite lolcows loves to bring them up. Holy crap. We the queen the queen's gone too. The Kennedy Soros. I mean, is Mayor McCheese part of this madness? Well, he cries on his huge pillow too. Let's see. Probably the most useful section of what I say, Tanguy's. Mr. Tanguy Lean's book is a careful analysis of the radio campaign of the Germans did during the Battle of France. They seem to have mixed truth and falsehood with extraordinary skill, given strictly accurate news of military events, but at the same time, spreading wild rumors calculated to cause panic. Now I got to watch that movie again tonight if I get any time. I got to turn the internet off after Tanguy. Thank you, Misty. Well, see, Wyatt, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight. It's all good. So I married an axe murderer, double D's. It's Boston 30 plus years ago. Great movie though. Mike Myers and Amy. I can't remember her last name. Um, oh, it's so funny. I think it still hold up. Nancy Travis, that's who it was. Yeah, I always had a big crush on her too. I loved her crazy frizzy hair. It's called fucky. It's mainly just a lot of headbutting and kicking people on the ground. Saturday. Oh, the Scottish national anthem. There's so many good lines in in that movie too. So yeah, I love the Bay City Rollers. I was a big disco fan though. Um, Probably the most useful section of Mr. Tanguy Lean's, and that flows. Thank you, Misty. Tanguy Lean book is the careful analysis. Okay, I already read that though. I'm just so happy that I got the pronunciation right. The French radio hardly seems to have told the truth at any moment of the battle. And much of the time, it simply gave no news at all. During the period of the Phony War, the French had countered the German propaganda chiefly by means of jamming, a bad method because it either does not work or if it does work, gives the impression that something is being concealed. Jamming also works both ways. During the same period, the Germans had sapped the morale of the French army by clever radio programs, which gave the bored troops some light entertainment and at the same time stirred up Anglo French jealousy and cashed in on the demagogic appeal of the Russo German Pact. When the French transmitter stations fell into their hands, the Germans were ready with programs of propaganda and music which they had prepared long beforehand. A detail of organization which every invading army ought to keep in mind. You have to give the Germans their due on brutal efficiency. Hey, Final Dad. Reading is fundamental, sir. Reading is fundamental. The Battle of France went so well for the Germans in a military sense that one may be inclined, when reading Mr. Tanguy Lean's account, to overrate the part that radio played in their victory. A question Mr. Tanguy Lean glances but does not discuss at length is whether propaganda can ever achieve anything on its own, or whether it merely speeds up processes that are happening already. So, what do y'all think? Do you think that propaganda changes anything, or it gives people permission to act on their baser instincts and accelerates things, kind of like the accelerationist movement? Oh, damn. 43, Woodrow. So if y'all didn't see what he asked, this was written prior to Axis Sally and Tokyo Rose. Yowzes. That's going to be costly. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Michael, about allowing people to act on their baser instincts and not act as civilized human beings. Apply the idea of propaganda to say odd shows or Kaiser, you can see it clearly. Yeah. Hey, Carrie T, good to see you. Good to have you over. I mean, it's roller skating, but good coming up on my third surgery on my spine. I don't want to risk it. Yeah, yeah, it's always 2020, but he sure was good at forward looking. Uh, well, I moved my probably the latter is the case, partly because the radio itself has had the unexpected effect of making war a more truthful business than it used to be, except in a country like Japan. Insulted by its remoteness and by the fact that the people have no shortwave sets, it is very difficult to conceal bad news. And if one is being reasonably truthful at home, it is difficult to tell very big lies to the enemy. Now and again, a well timed lie. Examples are the Russian troops who passed through England in 1914 and the German government's order to destroy all dogs in June 1940 may produce a great effect, but in general, propaganda cannot fight against the facts. Though it can color and distort them, it evidently does not pay for any length of time. So time is propaganda's biggest enemy. Okay, double D's. To say one, okay, it does not pay for any length of time to say one thing or do another. The failure of the German New Order not to take examples nearer home has demonstrated this. Hitler can say that the Jews started the war, and if he survives, that will become official history. To Noah Wilmette, 18 May 1944, typewritten. Interesting. Oh, God. It makes me cringe when that word comes out of my mouth, but it truly is that this being uttered 80 years later out of people's mouths, thinking that it is true, trying to sell that it is true to other people, disgusts me to no end. Boston. uh, Out of the corner of my eye, I read that as also who whites the history. Holy Lord. So 10A Mortimer Crescent, London, Northwest 6. Mortimer Duke. It's getting about time to watch Trading Places again, too, because it is a Christmas movie. Carrie T, exactly. Dear Mr. Wilmot, many thanks for your letter. You ask whether totalitarianism, leader worship, etc., are really on the upgrade and instance the fact that they are not apparently growing in this country and the USA. I'll let that one cook for a little bit. So let's read that paragraph again. Many thanks for your letter. You ask whether totalitarianism, leader worship, etc., are really on the upgrade, and instance the fact they are not apparently growing in this country and the USA. I must say, I believe or fear that taking the world as a whole, these things are on the increase. Hitler, no doubt, will soon disappear, but only at the expense of strengthening Stalin, the Anglo American millionaires, and see all sorts of petty Führers of the type of de Gaulle. All the national movements everywhere, even those that originate in resistance to German domination, seem to take a non democratic form to group themselves round some superhuman Fuhrer, Hitler, Stalin, Salazar, Franco, Gandhi, de Valera, are all varying examples. Well, I mean, double D is leader worship as a religion is again. Hello, Nova Photographics Dead Man. And welcome. Um, and to adopt the theory that the end justifies the means. Everywhere in the world, movement seems to be in the direction of centralized economies, which can be made to work in an economic sense, but which are not democratically organized, which tend to establish a caste system. Before we even got here, G2 is that like allowing Todd to cook or marinate? Speaking of marinade, I made some freaking damn good bulgogi uh, for lunch. Uh, Marinated for 3 days. Thank you. Oh, it was good. Fresh carrots with the rice is my preference. Hey, Chino Nino. How you doing, bud? So we've established the caste system by non-democratically established centralized economies. A little tired, Chino. A little tired. My mood has picked up since I've started the stream, but we're uh, we're going. Let's see. With this go the horrors of emotional nationalism and a tendency to disbelieve in the existence of objective truth. Wow. We seem to be running into this objective truth a lot outside of this. Uh, I I brought it up on a couple of places since yesterday, right? On our stream and on DDocs with Bricky. Let's see. So emotional nationalism, tendency to disbelieve objective truth because all the facts have to fit with the words and prophecies of some infallible Führer, or in the words of our favorite PPP, the narrative. Already, history has, in a sense, ceased to exist, i.e., there is no such thing as a history of our own times which could be universally accepted. And the exact sciences are endangered as soon as military necessity ceases to keep people up to the mark. Hitler can say that the Jews started the war, and if he survives, that will become official history. He can't say that two and two are five because, for the purposes of, say, ballistics, they have to make four. But if the sort of world that I am afraid of arrives, a world of two or three great superstates which are unable to conquer one another, two and two could become five if the Fuhrer wished it. That, so far as I can see, is the direction in which we are actually moving. Though, of course, the process is reversible. Yours sincerely, signed, Geo Orwell, George Orwell. How do y'all feel about the letter? Just as this is a letter to a friend in 43. Was it still 43, y'all? 44. And again, we're lensing into today to take it. Right, Spider Dog. But it's always reversible, but it was more easily reversed as it was happening than where we sit today. Right? Shouldn't you have put the interesting in quotes, Wyatt? Yeah, it is pretty crazy that it was 3 weeks before the for the invasion. Let's see. We are told that it is only people's objective actions that matter. Objective actions that matter. From As I Please, Tribune, 8 December 1944. For years past, I have been an industrious collector of pamphlets and a fairly steady reader of political literature of all kinds. The thing that strikes me more and more, and it strikes a lot of other people too, is that extraordinary viciousness and dishonesty of political controversy in our time. Boy, he's got to be rolling over in his grave at this point. I do not mean merely that controversies are acrimonious. They ought to be that when they are on serious subjects. I mean, that almost nobody seems to feel that an opponent deserves a fair hearing or that the objective truth matters so long as you can score a neat debating point. When I look through my collection of pamphlets, conservative, communist, Catholic, Trotskyist, pacifist, anarchist, and what have you, it seems to me that almost all of them have the same mental atmosphere. Though the points of emphasis vary, nobody is searching for the truth. Everybody is putting forward a case with complete disregard for fairness or accuracy, and the most plainly obvious facts can be ignored by those who don't want to see them. The same propaganda tricks are to be found almost everywhere. It would make it would take many pages of this paper merely to classify them, but here I draw attention to one very widespread controversial habit: disregard of an opponent's motives. The key word here is objectively. An opponent's motives. We talk a lot about and we laugh a lot about how certain things and jokes can be funny in one place, but um but in another place they are wholly reprehensible and to be condemned in another place. And it's all about um, knowing what your, in Orwell's word here, opponent's motives are. And you can tell them, they tell you if you listen to them and watch them uh, through facial expressions and stuff like that. This 1944, before it, this is the end of 44, I do believe, Woodrow. Let me see. Yeah, it's the 8th December. What year did Animal Farm come out? I can't remember if it was 45. I think they were a collection of his observations because if you listen to them, or they were built from his past observations and past writings. Because if you listen to the way he talks about propaganda and I don't know if somebody can. Here, I'll look. Tell me when. Uh, I just can't remember when they were written. So, but I'm pretty sure it was post 44. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking it was 45 for Animal Farm. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to say um yeah, 49 would make sense. You're coming into the TV age, and so with the telescreens, right? I appreciate you looking them up. I try not to say something's a fact without having the fact to back it up with. All right. So we are told it is only people's objective actions that matter, and their subjective feelings are of no importance. Thus, pacifists, by obstructing the war, are objectively aiding the Nazis. And therefore, the fact that they may be personally hostile to fascism is irrelevant. I've been guilty of saying this myself more than once. The same argument is applied to the Trotskyists. Trotskyists are often credited, at any rate by communists, with being active and conscious agent of Hitler. But when you point out that the many and obvious reasons why this is unlikely to be true, the objectively line of talk is brought forward again. To criticize the Soviet Union helps Hitler. Therefore, for Trotskyism is fascism. And when this has been established, the accusation of conscious treachery is usually repeated. Anybody else dizzy? That gets real dizzy real quick when thinking of objective subjectivity being objectively true or subjectively false. Thank you, Todd. You yet again provide me some way to giggle to myself at least. So this is not only dishonest, it also carries a severe penalty with it. If you disregard people's motives, it becomes much harder to foresee their actions. If you disregard people's motives, it becomes much harder to foresee their actions. By 49, the effects of Allied war reels before movies would have been exposed the elements of Western propaganda to its own populace. Orwell was likely hyper aware of it, and time just proved him right. Yeah, I mean, I think he being exposed as early as World War One, right, to seeing how propaganda worked and how um, democracies, even social democracies like England, or they're not a parliamentarian system, and a republican democracy like we are. I think he was well aware of the propaganda tools that everybody was using, and by this writing, he was he was definitely had a mature vision of the dangers of it. And again, if you disregard people's motives, it becomes much harder to foresee their actions. So, for there are occasions when even the most misguided person can see the results of what he is doing. There is a crude but quite possible illustration. A pacifist is working in some job which it gives him access to important military information and is approached by a German secret agent. In those circumstances, his subjective feelings do make a difference. If he is subjectively pro Nazi, he will sell his country, and if he isn't, he won't. And situations essentially similar, though less dramatic, are constantly arising. In my opinion, few pacifists are inwardly Nazi, and extremist left wing parties will inevitably contain fascist spies. The important thing is to discover which individuals are honest and which are not. And the usual blanket accusation merely makes this more difficult. That's the more difficult, not difficulty. I read it. Yeah, I read it in ninth. I think I read it in 1984 that year. The atmosphere of hatred in which controversy is conducted blinds people to considerations of this kind. To admit that an opponent might be both honest and intelligent is felt to be tolerable. It is more immediately satisfying to shout that he is a fool or a scoundrel or both than to find out what he is really like. It is this habit of mind, among other things, that has made political prediction in our time so remarkably unsuccessful. Or when you can do it, it just doesn't matter. Nationalism is not to be confused with patriotism. From Notes on Nationalism, Polemic, October 1945. By nationalism, I mean, first of all, the habit of assuming that human beings can be classified like insects and that whole blocks of millions or tens of millions of people can be confidently labeled good or bad. But secondly, this is much more important. I mean, the habit of identifying oneself with a single nation or other unit, placing it beyond good and evil, and recognizing no other duty than that of advancing its interests. And so, yeah, blanketly saying that all people in a certain classification are good or evil. I think that good and evil can exist in the same place. Cap, that I don't know if you were here when I was talking about my daughter being so excited when a fifth grader or sixth grader. I can't remember. She had to sub in for one of her teachers that was out. Brought in a, I'm assuming it was a graphic novel. She called it a comic book, but of Fahrenheit 451, and she was just happy to see that the kid. I mean, the kid was like in love with the uh, the book. So Bradbury's got another one on our side here. Oh, Misty, I feel for you. Let's see. But secondly, and this is much more important, I mean, the habit of identifying oneself with one nation or other unit, placing it beyond good and evil, and recognizing no other duty than that of advancing its interests. Nationalism is not to be confused with patriotism. Both words are normally used in so vague a way that any definition is liable to be challenged, but one must draw a distinction between them. Since two different and even opposing ideas are involved, by patriotism, I mean devotion to a particular place and a particular way of life, which one believes to be the best in the world, but has no wish to force upon other people. Patriotism of its nature defensive, both militarily and culturally. Nationalism, on the other hand, is inseparable from the desire for power. The abiding purpose of every nationalist is to secure more power and more prestige, not for himself, but for the nation or other unit in which he has chosen to sink his own individuality. So you could, well, let's continue on and see what Orwell has to say about this. Nationalism, in the existent extended sense in which I am using the word, includes such movements as and tendencies as communism, political Catholicism, Zionism, anti Semitism, Trotskyism, and pacifism. They're all isms, and we're all in a prism. It does not necessarily mean loyalty to a government or a country, still less to one's own country. And it is not even strictly necessary to that the units in which it deals should actually exist. To name a few obvious examples, Jewry, Islam, Christendom, the proletariat, and the white race are all of them objects of passionate nationalistic feeling, but their existence can be seriously questioned, and there's no definition of any one of them that would be universally accepted. Now you got me thinking, Cap. but was it, but what was it, a capitalist reaction? Just something to think about. All right, after this chapter, I'm gonna call it. My brain is kind of scattered. I'm developing thoughts. I need a nap. For those who feel deeply about contemporary politics, certain topics have become so infected by considerations of prestige that a genuinely rational approach to them is almost impossible. So, about the sacrifice of oneself for love, for the love of the uh, the white steak, the forbidden meat. Out of the hundreds of examples that one might choose, take this question: which of these great allies, the USSR, Britain, and the USA, has contributed most to defeat Germany? In theory, it should be possible to give a reasoned and perhaps even conclusive answer to the question. In practice, however, the necessary calculations cannot be made because anyone likely to bother his head about such a question would inevitably see it in terms of competitive prestige. He would therefore start by deciding in favor of Russia, Britain, or America, as the case may be. And and only after this would begin searching for arguments that seem to support his case. And there are whole strings of kindred questions to which you can only get an honest answer from someone who is indifferent to the whole subject involved and whose opinion on it is probably worthless in any case. Hence, partly the remarkable failure in our time of political and military prediction. It is curious to reflect that out of all experts of all the schools, there was not a single one who was able to foresee the so likely an event as the Russo German Pact of 1939. And when news of the pact broke, the most wildly divergent explanations of it were given, and predictions were made which were falsified almost immediately, based in nearly every case not on a study of pro- probabilities, but on the desire to make the USSR seem good or bad, strong or weak. Political or military commentators, like astrologers, can survive almost any mistake because their more devoted followers do not look to them for appraisal of the facts, but for the stimulation of nationalistic loyalties and aesthetic judgments, especially literary judgments, are often corrupted in the same way as political ones. It would be difficult for an Indian nationalist to enjoy reading Kipling or for a conservative to see the merits of Mayakovsky. And there is always the temptation to claim that any book whose tendency one disagrees with be a bad book from a literary point of view. People of strongly nationalistic outlook often perform this sleight of hand without being conscious of dishonesty. So there we go for today. Almost an hour and a half. I appreciate everybody. Yeah, that chapter. I think I may have to ruminate on it a bit and maybe comment on it tomorrow when we first start. So, um, same time, same channel tomorrow for part 5. I'll have to see how much more we have on this. I think I'm going to do something lighthearted following this. This has been pretty heavy. I'm going to do 1054 and all that. So, following the Great Schism, it's a lighthearted history of the Catholic Church. This Carl Keating writes in such a sarcastic tone. It's hilarious. I love it. So we'll do something lighthearted before we get into more heavy subjects again. I think I'm going to try to do that, interchange them like that, and see what you guys like the most. Yeah, it was it felt heavy to read. So anyway, I will see y'all guys probably tonight, I am sure. You guys have a good, safe rest of the day. And I will see you guys later.